good evening to everyone, and thank you for your statements. I suppose just a lot of has been said already, but just a few comments, I suppose. I remember when I first became aware that a wheelchair user couldn't vote in their local polling station because it wasn't accessible. I was horrified. Like, it wasn't something that had crossed my mind. I just assumed that all polling stations were accessible, and I actually think it was one of the candidates in the local election the last time in Cavan was a wheelchair user, and she couldn't vote in her local polling station. And I suppose, as you said, John, it depends. There's a lot of people with different disabilities. And I know in your statement, Arthur, saying there has to be a universal design, and that's, I think, what needs, because we have to make sure that the building's accessible for wheelchair users, but it's also that it's, you know, how do people, say, without the use of their hands, vote? I mean, are they allowed to have someone to help them? If someone with an intellectual disability, are they allowed to get some direction? You know, and I mean, some of these things are happening, I know, but it's just to make sure that people know that they can access that support and that it's there. You know, so I think it's important that the polling stations are universal design, but also that the material is accessible and easy read and so forth. And I think that goes for political parties as well, and we'll have to ensure that our election material is in an easy read format. And there's probably a little bit of convincing to do, but I mean, it has to be done, and that's it. And I also welcome the fact that there are improvements, and you've acknowledged there's been improvements, albeit at a slow pace. But on the registration, I know the postal vote registration, I mean, I know lots of people who got caught out on that over the years, registered for a postal vote, voted by post, assumed that was it, they didn't have to do it again, and then had no vote the next time. And we're really upset about it, and it's great that that's amended. I remember arguing a long time ago for the register to be linked to PPS numbers. I couldn't understand why there was an issue with that, because at one stage I had 3 votes. I was on 3 different registers. In one, I was twice, I think, under 2 different names, but I was the same person, like on one register, and I was on another register. And then I made the council aware of this. And then a draft register came out and I was gone completely. I wasn't. Now, when I brought that to their attention, they were horrified, because I was a councillor and I wasn't registered, and I think they went off to make sure that no other councillors had been removed from the register. But I think, again, it's important that that registration has become easier. It's rolling. It can be done online, and it can be done from an early age as well. Like when I was teaching, I taught LCA and I taught social education, and we used to talk about voting. And one of the exercises they had to do was get a voter registration form and fill it out. And then when we had that little exercise on, I used to keep them, and then I keep an eye on their date of birth, and then I submit them. And they knew I was going to submit them, so they were delighted that they were registered to vote, you know, prior to their 18th birthday. But so I just thought it was really important that they learned that in school. But LCA had that and still have it in their courses, but it's not necessarily in any other, not in Leaving Cert anyway. You might do it in CSPE. But, you know, it's important that we educate our young about voting and the importance of voting as well. A question was put to me, and I don't know if there's an answer, if you have an answer to it as well. There was a young man who has a significant disability, but he's a huge interest in politics, and he'd love to put himself forward for selection at local election conventions. And he asked, if he was elected, what supports are there? Particularly if he's elected. I mean, are there any supports during the election campaign? But even after that, if he was elected as a local councillor, is he automatically entitled to a PA, or is that something he has to source himself? I don't know even who I should follow up that with, but you know, if you have any information.
It doesn't matter where you work or who you are, you have to apply for your personal assistant. So it wouldn't come with just because you were elected, it wouldn't come along with it. And I think that's just, it's a huge barrier from the beginning to the end of thinking about getting involved in politics, is that trying to even sort out that level of support so that it'll bring you through the different stages of trying to get involved is the huge barrier, which I was saying kind of earlier on. So even if he was elected, he would be still in that situation where he would be applying for.
Because he would need the support, you know, of someone to do the work. You know, even, like, just physically need somebody's support, like,
And I suppose it just, sorry to cut across you, but I suppose it's still in that space, whether you're running for election or you're looking for a job in a university or in a supermarket.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter where the job is, you need the support. So one couldn't come above another person
well,
trying
at
to get a
that
job
point,
somewhere
yeah.
else. So,
I suppose, just to encourage, we need to encourage more people to get involved. Like, it's, and I know, John, you talked about community groups, and often there are more women involved in community groups, and they don't really equate that with being politics. And I know we'd often have campaigns to try and get more women involved, and you're telling them, look, what you're actually doing is politics. You're representing your community, you're making improvements in your community. So I suppose it's building people's capacity and confidence, and to go forward for election, put themselves forward and to take that step. Just to say as well, Joan, about the pilot or that made the comment. Well, I thought Fiona was being nice when she said he didn't mean any harm, but I know that it's ignorance. I think it's more arrogance. And I just wondered, did you make a complaint? Because I think you would be within your right to do so. I mean, that's outrageous. And
there was definitely complaints put in through the DFI and the individual herself.
Yeah.
So
So anyway, thanks.
Yeah, the individual concerned made a complaint, obviously, and we, as the organising party, made a complaint, and that has not come to a conclusion.
Yeah, he might respond to Paul. Art, do you want to respond?
A couple of points raised by Deputy Tully. The electoral register is a challenge because there's no such thing as the electoral register. There are 31 separate registers run by local authorities, and Dublin City Council do the 4 in Dublin. So the issue of duplicates doesn't crop up. So if you were born in Kerry and you're studying in Dublin and they go do a master's in UL, etc., it is likely that you will collect registrations in every place that you are, because none of these guys talk to each other right now, and this is the big project that's being done, run out of the Custom House, and when it's finished it's going to be brilliant. So I would urge you all and urge your constituents to check the register.ie, upload your PPS number and your date of birth, and let's aim to have a bulletproof electoral register by 2025 or 2026. And just to say for the record, I agree entirely that all of our materials should be absolutely accessible by everybody too. Our head of comms, Brian Dawson, has great experience in this area, and all of the An Comisiún's materials will be in as accessible a format for everybody as is possible. So there is much work to be done here. It takes an awful lot of time and effort to do it, but it's worthwhile.
Something you said there brought to mind something that I should have thought of before. You're talking about women are hugely invested and involved in community. So how come it doesn't transfer to local authorities or the Oireachtas? It's again the same issue, it's just different accommodations as the issue that disabled people have. Yeah? It's the barriers that are in place that don't facilitate. And you can apply the issue, what are the barriers that are there for women? They've got to do with caring roles and family stuff and things like that. There's a lot of it. And it's a savage kind of life in terms of being a member of the Oireachtas, being pulled in all sorts of directions at 7 o'clock in the evening. Now we could be here till 8, something else could be coming up, whatever. So again, they're the same kind of issues that are there for people with disabilities, that there are barriers, and you've just mentioned what would be there. Supposing I actually do pull out the right ticket and I get elected, how do I get in? How do I do this? How do I,
Okay.
But I want to come back to the thing about how do we get more people with the hunger, with the want to be participating politically, to get the youngsters to register. A very interesting point, Art, you make about the sciences that are the research is that if you get into the habit of doing something, of course that makes sense. Yeah.
It reminded me of something a witness that was here, and he was saying that he felt that issues around disability were just not a strong issue in relation to, for politicians, because there wasn't a strong voice there. And I disagreed with him. I said, you look at the population now, according to the census, 22% of the population identifies having a disability, plus their families. I said, there's huge potential there. It's just to bring it together and put the pressure on in that format. 'Cause he was saying, like, about standing for election himself, but but thinking he wouldn't have the support. And I was thinking, well, I don't know about that actually, because there is huge, there's the potential for huge support out there.
I think it strikes me the easiest place for people to get stuck into the political thing is at local authority level, because people can learn their trade, and it's easier in your local community to be able to pull support, your relationships and whatever. Now, that's not saying you should. So I think that's quite important that we try and encourage people, make a particular effort. And there's local authority elections next year, and there's 31 of them, and in any local authority there's district electoral divisions, isn't that it? Like, people can, you're not trying to get votes all over the county.
No, you're not.
Or the municipality. You're trying to get them within a few square miles of where you live. So I think there are more, that's a better place to be fishing, to try and encourage greater participation.
I think there's also an issue around attitudes. If you see somebody with a disability that's trying to get into political life, the sense is that that's going to be their space, is disability, and that there isn't much more to them. And I think that bit is really, really important, that yes, we can be very strong advocates for disability, but there's so much more to our lives than just disability. So we could have an interest or a knowledge in all sorts of different things, and I suppose it's getting that across to people who are going to be voting, that I'm not just a one ticket. There is more to what you see.
In my time here in the Shannon, I didn't feel there was any difficulty getting people from the point of view of committees. We're quite open to having people and having modules in relation to different, whether it's the petitions committee, the transport, the education, the housing, whatever. It was more about getting to know who the people who wanted to come in and the issues they had. So I do feel there's an open door in that sense, that committees are, I had no sense that committees didn't want to hear from disabled people and their organisations. I think it's around that we have to work. And again, if someone comes in here and they say they're tuppence worth at a committee meeting, that's a big fill up for somebody in terms of, God, I like that, or do you know what I mean? So these are all part of encouraging people to and they can clip their piece and others will see it and all the rest of it. So they are, it's serious stuff. You participated in parliamentary affairs of your country. You spoke about your issue and the issue of others. There's lots of different doors that can be pulled here to get people on the road. Yeah.